AFPNEO. I'm Dawn Meglin. I'll be moderating today because, let's see, I got volunteered or voluntold, as often happens. Dan Blakemore has another training event to attend, and Paula Mastriani is out doing her other, side hustle. So here we are today, and we are going to kick it off. We've got 19 people joining us so far. I think there's still more people coming in. We had about 50 people register, which was really exciting for AFP. So welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Let's get all those little red unmute buttons pressed here so I can hear you. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you. I hate
Morning,
being the
everybody.
person in the room talking. So what's going on in the event planning world? How many of you have just canceled all of your events and said, 2021's coming, we'll deal with it then?
The International Soapbox Derby certainly has, so it's a sad thing. So
Okay. And how many of you have gone virtual with your events? Okay, so talk to us about, just to get us kicked off, and if anybody has any better ideas, please feel free to step in. So talk to us about what feedback you heard from people after canceling your events. Did you hear anything from your donors? Did they understand? Were they okay with it? Did they have questions? What was that like?
most of ours, having a race in a derby car virtually is pretty much impossible. So they certainly have understood the situation and have supported us in our decisions. We do have a race local who is actually in Akron that's going to have their first race since February at Derby Downs. So we're excited, and some of our regular headquarters staff are going to be out there supporting that race local in what they're trying to accomplish, and see others follow in their footsteps as far as getting back to the kids racing. So the kids certainly don't necessarily understand this, especially the younger ones, but we're trying to put it together safely. So.
And Doreen, how are your normal sponsorships now? Did your sponsors continue to give, or?
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting one, especially the portion of our revenue that signifies. And so 99% continue to support us during this time frame, and very few said that no, we want that back. But what most of them did is said, just put that towards next year. And so that was a huge relief for us. And same way with the donors. I would say 90% of our donors have continued to support us like they have in the past. So.
So for those of you that have had to either go virtual or cancel, so my question is, have you come up with new best practices? I mean, are there new ways of doing things? Do you have a new handbook? I mean, we all had our kind of event planning go-to playbook, and how has that changed? And what have you adopted in as new best practices?
Well, we're doing, for Young Life Greater Akron, we're actually doing a hybrid model. So we're doing an in-person event at Tangier in November, but we're also offering a virtual experience for the same donor base, support base. So Tangier, we've had several meetings with them, and they are very accommodating to our physical distancing practices and protocols for COVID. So we're trying a both and, not totally virtual. We're interested to see how many people will choose the virtual versus doing it in person with all the tables and seats a certain way and all of that. So we're kind of in a mix right now.
Has anybody else done this type of hybrid that might be able to help Amy with any good advice?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped on a few minutes late. My name's Carly. I'm with the Humane Society of Summit County. I'm the event coordinator there. We actually just got off of doing our largest event, the Possibility Ball, as a hybrid event.
Yeah.
And I will say a lot of notes and a lot of pre-planning. That was, our ball is typically 400 people, and we had about 107 attend in person.
Mhm.
And we had about 130 say they were participating virtually, and we probably had about maybe 80 to 90 actually watched it live.
Mhm.
I'm happy to share any tips that we just had, because it was, from our end, it was very successful from what we were, I guess, expecting. Do you know who you're working with, like technology-wise?
Oh yeah, we have our own crew for that in terms of like signups and registration.
Okay. Are you gonna, for your live streaming?
Oh yeah, we have a tech person that will handle that. We're doing the tech support we have. We're offering like live as it's happening. We don't believe that our base is going to sit through an entire live experience. So we're doing a little bit of both and with that too. We have a video set up for all kinds of content that will be available for the participants, but they don't actually have to tune in that night. So we're pre-recording a lot of content, putting that up on our link, and then the night of, we're going to do like drop-in live times for those that want to like be involved and be in the room, so to say, as it's happening. So it's kind of a, I guess now that I'm verbalizing that, it's a 3-part strategy. But your little tip about less actually participated in the live than said they would, that was a real good tip. I took a note of that because we're just now getting our invites wrapped up and out the door. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was, we condensed our program from 3 hours to maybe 2, and allowed an hour for our virtual guests to join us and watch our live program. So that's kind of where we had a lot of our stresses, was making sure that technology wise it was good across the board with that. So I mean, if you want to, I'll be happy to exchange information with you, and you can ask me any questions you need to.
That'd be great if you could put your info in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll grab it. Thank you.
I love when that works out. How are you tracking metrics with all of this? I'm a numbers person. So, you know, when you've got to do the final report to the board, how are you measuring your success with these events, whether they be virtual or hybrid?
Well, for us with the ball, we used a great platform called GiveSmart for us, for our live auction portion and selling our tickets. So they have a great reporting system that we're able to pull and kind of see like our auction numbers, like what went over FMV, what went for FMV, how many bids an item got, how many times somebody was watching it. So it was very in depth on what we're able to pull our numbers wise. And but I really like the GiveSmart platform for that.
Is anybody else using a platform they'd like to share with everybody that they're having great success?
We use One Cause, VidPal. We've used that since 2015, which is fantastic. And we actually use, I work for Hattie Larla. We canceled our gala this year. We decided not to go virtual, but in lieu of that, we're doing an online fundraising campaign. So we don't have the stress of an in-person event, and we don't have the stress of a virtual event, but we're doing a week-long fundraising campaign. Our board stepped up and provided a match. They all pledged to create a matching gift fund. So anything that comes in, any donations that come in during the campaign, during the week-long campaign, are going to be matched by our board. So that's a nice incentive for people. But we're also going to be doing, to get back to the technology thing, we're also going to be doing a live stream event at the end of the campaign, on the final day of the campaign, which will be hosted by the person who usually hosts our gala. So that will work out. And hopefully get some more donations. But we still may be including an auction in this campaign, if we get any auction items donated. We had a couple of donors mention they might be interested in donating an auction item. So we have the capability to do that. We still have the capability of doing that. So that's kind of the alternative that we created for this. And P.S., it may raise more money than the gala. So
That's an interesting perspective. So has anybody done anything already and seen higher results? Not quite yet ready to report out.
There's no expenses, no food and bev, you know?
Yeah, it cuts down on it. I know, I mean, just even with, we were talking about like just professional development for AFPNEO, like we're getting huge numbers for webinars in comparison to what we had in person. So some of it's actually flipping for the positive. So, and I've seen that with some of the nonprofits I'm contracting with right now. They're seeing more attendance on things with Zoom versus in person. So their reach is bigger. They're able to kind of expand outside of certain geographic areas because of that option. So, so why don't we do, since this is a roundtable, let's share some best practices for event planning. Let's have everybody go around and kind of give one or more of their favorite things to do with event planning, especially in lieu with all these changes. I'd love to hear what all of you experts have to say. Don't make me call on you. I have all of your faces here.
Well, I guess I'll go. For me, with the ball this year, normally, I mean, it is quite a large event to undergo, but with all of the changes we made doing virtual, in person, and we also opened up our fund a need for a week-long donation portion of it. And we also did find a match, like Wendy was talking about for her program. We found a match to match with ours in fund a need. So to kind of give us a little bit of a leg up with that. The biggest help for me was finding a team to help delegate to. Normally my boss, my director of development, is involved a little bit, but I completely handed over all of the technology aspects to her to handle, to talk with Lost Tribe Media, to handle the videos. And I had another person who handles our Giving Tuesday every year. She stepped into the ball and took more on this year, and she handled the entire fund and need aspect, which allowed me to free up and worry about the guest and the actual event planning, working with the Hilton. So for me, that's what worked this year, was doing a 3-part team and delegating out so that I wasn't as crazy as I was in the month of August.
I'd say my biggest input, or I guess from experience of doing some virtual gatherings online, is just making sure you have a tech support for it, even if it costs some money, because you can have the best planned program and the best laid out plans to engage your participants, but if your technology goes wonky, or you don't have, speaking for myself, the best tech person running it, it can really kind of damper the whole program. So it's worth the cost.
Yeah, I will echo what Renee just said. Fine, if you don't have money in your budget for an actual tech company or somebody who knows what they're doing, definitely find it. We could not have ran our ball without paying the money to Lost Tribe this year. They did so much for us and did so many run-throughs with it, which was so helpful.
Yeah, that's the one thing we kept from our gala being canceled, was our AV company. We had already paid them a deposit on the contract, so we kept them because they're going to help us run the live stream. So absolutely keep the money with them. I would agree. Oh, one other thing that I've noticed, not for our gala, but we have another event. We have a 5K and walk that we use as a fundraiser. So that went virtual this year, obviously. It's been more successful than it's ever been before, because we've gotten family members who live out of state who are able to participate. So I think moving forward, this is going to be a hybrid event. even if we have an in-person, we're still going to have a virtual. So, you know, keeping that in mind for future is that really does expand your reach. I know Amy mentioned in the chat that their reach is expanding. So that's what this is giving us this opportunity to learn how to do this. So I'm looking at that as a really interesting learning opportunity.
Wendy, this is Doreen from the International Soapbox Derby. We're actually thinking next spring of having a virtual 5K. Is there particular software or tools that you're using to be successful? We'd like to have like a little friendly competition and folks be able to see what other teams are actually raising and all of that.
Yeah, OneCause. We use OneCause for everything now. We use it for the mobile bidding for the events, and we use what's called their peer-to-peer fundraising software. That's what we were using for our 5K this year. You're able to do registration, and then people are able to create their own fundraising pages and share it on social and fundraise that way. So that's what we use is OneCause. I know there are other platforms that do that kind of thing, and I know there's one in particular, I think it's called Run Sign Up, if I'm not mistaken, but they don't charge you. There's no like fee if you're a nonprofit, I believe. You may want to check it out. I think it's called Run Sign Up if you're going to do that. But I love OneCause. I think that they've really been able to meet our needs as far as, you know, all of the type of events that we do. And it's super easy to use. That's key. And the websites look really nice.
One suggestion that I have heard, we have not done it yet. We're preparing for some virtual events this fourth quarter. But one suggestion I've heard that I think is very smart is to have one person specifically monitoring and answering any chat messages. Because even like in this call, there's chats that are coming up. And so you need to have one person running the system. Then you have your MC and you have a separate person only watching and responding to chat messages. And they can even put in the chat different questions and encourage the conversation even inside the chat, which then you will have. So then you can also contact those folks if they expressed an additional interest in anything in particular. That was just something that I plan on doing that somebody else smarter than me came up with.
Yeah, I know the Akron Community Foundation, when they did their event, they ended up going virtual with their Women's Endowment Fund event. I remember that was one of the things that they specifically mentioned was they had somebody right there answering questions and like kind of tech support, on the fly tech support too.
Is anybody tying social media into their events, like Facebook Live or anything like that, and then having that also be monitored? Are you tying the fundraising into the social media platforms so that you can fundraise through there if they don't want to go to the website?
Well, and the nice thing about if you use any kind of webinar system or technology support system, you will have those recordings videotaped and recorded. I guess I said the same thing 3 times, but you would have those recordings so that then you can post them on your social platforms too in various ways. So it's actually a nice thing to go virtual for some of these events. And honestly, I'm not quite sure who said it, but we might actually do a couple of the things that we've done virtually and or hybrid moving forward, because it really does increase your reach and then the use that you can have of those materials after the fact as well.
So I'm going to call on Angela Palumbo because she has you've done an online auction for First Tee, haven't you? That's been going on for a couple of years. Have you picked up any tricks of the trade with that particular platform?
We actually are not going to do it this year, partly because we were debating asking for a lot of donated items, and it's that challenge of businesses, you know, struggling to meet their day-to-day payroll and then asking them, oh, will you give us free food or free whatever? And so we've decided to hold off on that. We have had some luck in the past, but I think it depends on really the items that we were doing. One year we had Disney gift cards. I think we had 6 or 8, which were passes to the parks, and those were huge. I mean, that themselves raised most of the money. It's never been a huge, in my opinion. I mean, we probably would net around, for that, the biggest one we did was around $4,000 or $5,000. So it wasn't significant, but it was a fairly easy process. We've used AFPNEO, which is a low cost but simple online platform. So there's not a lot of extra features that maybe they could have that other ones have, but you're also paying a lot less to do it. So, you know, my board was on the fence. They felt like, well, that it's still taking too much time and effort to get the items and do all that, and then bringing in that amount of money still didn't make sense in their eyes. So it's kind of funny that the one virtual thing that we had been doing, we're not doing this year. But we did have to cancel our golf outing that we do every year, which is our largest fundraiser, and that was in the spring. And again, the board decided to not reschedule it, which I know a lot of events had been rescheduled for, third or fourth quarter. And that was one of the reasons why they didn't want to reschedule it, because they felt that there was going to be a rush on events the end of the year, and they were going to have not just themselves, but maybe their businesses or contacts were going to be spread thin on their commitments. So, so we decided to not move forward with it, but we are doing an event. We have it scheduled for November up at Top Golf. So we're doing a fundraiser up there. We've done pretty well with getting some sponsors involved with it, but it's been slow to get individuals to sign up. So I'm not sure if people are waiting to see, again, in an in-person event, what that looks like. I know Top Golf has done a lot to really work on maintaining social distance and keeping things clean. And plus, if you're not familiar with it, the setup is you're actually outside. So they're just in heated platforms, but you're only in small groups of 6 individuals. So it's for an in-person event, it made sense for us to pursue it because, obviously we're tying in the golf theme, but the way they have it set up, we felt that it would make more sense from a distancing purposes. But so we'll kind of, Nancy Miller's on this call. She works with us part-time as our development coordinator. She's been helping a lot with it. So we are going to come up with some strategies, and she's been contacting people that were typically involved in the golf outing. And that was our other thought, is those that did not purchase or get involved at the golf outing sponsorships, that they would do this, hoping that they still had money budgeted to move to support us this fall. So so that's kind of a lot of different information there, but I'm on the call because I'm just curious what others are doing and how that would work, like how we can potentially be more virtual if we need to. It's difficult to run a golf outing and make part of that virtually, and that's our main event. And I know a lot of organizations do dinners and banquets and things like that, but ours is an actual golf outing. So I'm just unsure of how we could make that be both. So I'm here to
Hey,
listen
Angela.
and learn. No, you're good.
Angela, I guess I'll share with you, we did actually have our golf outing this year in July. And so I don't know if you guys have a timeline for maybe, thinking about how you might approach it next year based on the world that we live in. So we changed the format of ours. We eliminated the dinner, which is usually on the second half of things. We moved the start time up from about a lunchtime start time to an early morning. So we did, check in with, everybody came in, and instead of sort of mingling, it was more of I'm sorry, I'm getting a question here where I work for, Habitat for Humanity here in Summit County. So we, instead of having like a more of a mingled check-in, it was sequenced. We did, you got your registration bag, you bought your tickets for our 50/50, for our ticketed auctions, and for our golf course raffle. And then you went into the room to bid on auction items, and then right out to the course. So we were able to limit the amount of people that were sort of congregating in one place. And we found actually people really preferred the earlier start time and did not have an issue with no meal. And I'm sure part of that is people recognizing the challenges of the time, but we got really good feedback. And to be honest with you, we're looking at not having the dinner portion again next year, just because folks said, you know, we enjoy getting in and out a little bit earlier, and certainly the reduced cost was a huge benefit for us. But our net revenue for the event actually was up about 30% this year. We had better participation, and our sponsorship money was just about the same as last year. So all in all, I think it's possible to run a really good golf outing without creating challenges with social distancing and large groups and whatnot.
Yeah, our challenge, one of our biggest challenges, we actually have our participants in our program play in the golf outing.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that really, for their safety, we wanted to make sure we were looking out for the kids, obviously, and then because they would essentially ride along in the cart with the others. So it was hard to figure out how to best do that. And our golf outing is always in the spring. It's always in May. So
Okay.
We didn't really have a lot of time because we were trying to hold off as long as possible to make that decision. But I think you're right. I think there's a lot of ways that you can adjust. And now that we have time to plan for next year, we can adjust where needed. And maybe we find a new way to still incorporate the kids and the youth in the outing, but maybe in a different setting. So they're not actually in a close proximity to the golfers, but maybe there's a way we can use that. But yeah, I appreciate that. That's good thoughts.
I will echo what Drew was saying. We held our golf outing this year as well, back in July. So we were kind of like on that cusp of when things were starting to get a little bit better, but like we weren't really sure what was happening. And we worked with Silver Lake Country Club on it. And what we did is that we asked the golfers if they wanted to how many golf carts they wanted per their foursome. So if they were uncomfortable sharing a golf cart, they only had one person in their golf cart. And that kind of was really our determining factor of like how many foursomes we could have. We got pretty close to what we did last year, but we didn't exceed what we were looking to make this year. Our sponsorships were obviously down, but the feedback we heard from our golfers were they were very happy that we decided to have it, because golf is one of the things that people are still going out and doing a lot of, and they could feel safe doing it outside. So I'm not sure how your golf outing operates with like the children, Angela, like if they have to have a parent with them or if it's just a kid team. But I mean, that could be something to look at, is limiting how many people are riding in carts. And we did have to like go through the rules with all of our golfers of like, we didn't do a shotgun start. We did a certain teeing off procedure that the golf pro was helping us with, of monitoring that we weren't clustering everywhere. And we did change that we didn't do a sit down dinner or anything like that. We gave them all to go bags as soon as they were done, just like you, Drew. And they seemed to really love it. They didn't have to sit there for another hour and a half and listen to us talk about why our organization is great. They grabbed their food and ran.
I almost feel like this roundtable was incorrectly named, because it's not about best practices, it's about new practices, right? Like we've all had to pivot and change and look at things in 100 different ways, and a lot of it's for the better. Are you finding that there are other challenges that you just are looking for help with? Like you're like, I have no idea what to do with this. Really? Impressive. No challenges?
Well, I mean, for me, I guess just coming up with new ideas that we can incorporate into virtual. Since we did end up canceling one event this year, or two events this year now. Bark in the Park, one of our largest fundraisers at Lock 3, we get about 3,000 people to it, and that really wouldn't be that would be very frowned upon if we held that down in downtown Akron right now. So we canceled that, and we're coming up with a few ideas to try and help us make up that revenue. So I think just trying to find ways to either do it socially distanced or virtually that people will want to be doing is, I think, the challenging part.
I would say the biggest challenge, and again, we've been a little hesitant with trying to do a lot of virtual, is you're losing that personal touch and connection with your donors. For us, the golf outing is about being able to network with individuals that are new to the organization, that might, because typically they're representing someone else. They're not the one that maybe bought the sponsorship. So that's creating an opportunity for us to make a new connection. And again, for our situation, we utilize the participants to help make that connection. And it's great that they can see, as the golfer, the donor, how we're making that work, how we're bringing together the kids and what they're learning from life skills. And so I think that's the challenge. I've really been hesitant to do that. And even from our programming and how we deliver programs, we surveyed families and they did not want virtual. And I know some other chapters in the First Tee Network were creative and came up with some virtual ways involving kids, but our families were heavily, I want my kid to be in person and have that experience with that one-on-one or that relationship. So I think that's the biggest challenge, and that's my biggest hesitant side of it is I don't want to lose that connection. And I feel like that's been a difficulty all year, because even just having lunch with individuals or connecting with them, and like most organizations, a lot of our donors are probably in that older demographic, so you have to take that into consideration. So I think for us, that's been the challenge, is how to still make that relationship strong without having that personal contact.
Is anybody else finding that to be the case, or have they overcome that as an objection?
Hi, this is Brenda, Stark State College Foundation. And I have the same problem Angela has. We had to cancel our biggest event of the year, which is our Scholars and Benefactors. We bring students who receive scholarships and we put them with the benefactor, and they get to communicate. They sit together, they have a great lunch, and that wasn't happening the 1st of May. So now we're looking at this next coming year. How can we do this and do it safely? And we generally hold at least 300 people there, and it's limited seating. So we're generally they're packed in. So I'm not sure, we're just starting to debate about it. We're talking about trying to create a second virtual pathway if it seems like we can't move forward. But I don't know, it almost seems like we're defeating ourselves before we start if we're running a second pathway. I don't know, I need some ideas here.
I've kind of felt like even if it's virtual, any connection is better than no connection. So we haven't done, this will be our first attempt at something extremely virtual as an organization. But here's an idea. We're very geographically based. So not only do my role is not limited to Akron. It's really north of Columbus all the way up to west of Toledo. And one of our areas in the city of Cleveland wanted to engage donors and friends of the, of the organization. So we did like a driving tour that we invited people into. There was no cost for the event. The expenses were extremely low. We started at a certain site, and then we went to several sites, and our context is high school and middle school students. So we invited our donors and friends of the organization to take a driving tour of the area to see those schools like on their own in their car, so they didn't, you know, they were all safe. We provided a little to-go box of snacks and goodies. And we just gave people a chance to see the effect of their investment without having to get out. They could get out at the end. We had a food truck come to a park in Cleveland. This was the southeast side, so that's Maple Heights area. I arranged for a small food truck actually from Akron U to come up there for us. And we've had ourselves completely spread out in this parking lot in the city, and people who felt comfortable could take their turn and go and get a snack, the food truck or whatnot, or stay in the car. It almost turned into like a tailgate kind of thing. And it just gave us time to connect. We didn't expect to make it cover any revenue. We just wanted to connect, and we did get some support. Some new donors came on, which was awesome. But we just wanted to experiment. So we tried to pivot with that. We're definitely going to do it again. And we're definitely going to kind of tweak it, I guess, in a way, because we learned a lot doing it. And that idea actually stemmed from another one of these webinars. I forget who the group was, Dawn, but they were talking about pivoting your events to COVID. Instead of working against it, try to come up with creative ways. So the virtual events, you know, one of the groups on the call or somebody gave the idea that, you know, have food delivered to those that are virtual, like leave it on their porch. You get to engage some caterers who are probably very, very like sad to not be serving as many organizations and groups, but it just came from a lot of listening. And so we tried to take a little bit, and then we did this drive, and it was very, very well received. So I don't know, it was kind of a whim. We tried something. We had over 100 people participate, though. We felt that was a good in the specific area of Cleveland. So
That's super creative, like really amazing.
Thank you.
I love that idea. That's, yeah. And it is, it's about, I agree with what Amy's saying. I think it is more about, it's better to interact virtually than not at all. So are there new and innovative ways besides Zoom that people are using to interact while social distancing? And that car tour where you're in the comfort of your own car is a really cool idea, and that works out really well.
I think we did incorporate, I totally forgot about this because I delegated it, thankfully. We had a staff person or a volunteer at every site. So at Maple Heights High School, we had the staff person serving that school, and they're all virtual. The kids are virtual. They're not in person right now. He put a video together. We recorded videos of our staff at the schools and then put that out to those that couldn't come or didn't feel comfortable coming out on our Facebook event page, so that people could see what was happening at each of the schools, but not feel like nervous about not coming. They could still be a participant. And of course, giving links are everywhere, you know. So.
I love that outside of the box thinking. Anybody else have any suggestions on how Brenda and Angela can provide some contact in some way? I just got a question from Lynn. Will there be a summary of all these ideas sent to the group after this webinar? I know we're recording this, Lynn. Jackie, do you have anything you want to add to that for Lynn's question on the chat?
Yes, I will be sending a link to the webinar recording after it's processed. It takes like an hour to process, and after that, I'll put it on YouTube and then send everyone the link.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. Okay, we still have like 45 minutes of great ideas to share with one another. How about, you know, tracking your event? Anybody, you know, have great systems they want to share? You guys are quiet this morning. No? Okay. Who has questions?
I'll give a comment on a bad experience when
Perfect.
I was
We learn
attending
from
a
those.
virtual event. a reverse raffle and supporting a nonprofit. And they did it via Facebook, but the person who was by the camera was talking and laughing all the time. And so you really couldn't hear anything else but this person who actually had a very annoying laugh. And then they put the camera on the MC who was calling the numbers, if you know how reverse raffle works, not on the board. So you couldn't tell what numbers had been used. The whole thing was bad, where I thought, I'm not going to donate to this again. But I do have a different nonprofit trying it again, and they changed their, I think they must have experienced that one also. They changed the rules a little bit and they're doing it a little bit differently. So I know the comment before was we try it and then the next time you know some things to do better. So I did jump in and donate to that one, and we'll see what happens. Just some local nonprofits.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think that goes back to what a lot of you have been saying is technology, having that tech person that's actually in charge. And if you have an MC, they need to understand, like if you've got somebody that's moderating an event, they need to understand the importance of the protocols necessary to do virtual events. I think there should probably be some training involved with that prior to an event to prevent that from happening.
I'm interested in, and again, we haven't, gotten into the virtual side of things, but how are the organizations that have done some virtual or combined, like how are you capturing, I know Dawn kind of alluded to some of the number side of it, but how are you capturing their data? Like, are you just able to get their name, or are you able to get an email, especially if it's like utilizing just a Facebook Live? How are you able to capture those people, and then is there a follow-up with them? Thank you for participating in this, because I would assume a Facebook Live would just be anybody could tune in, unless, I don't know, again, I don't know enough about how that's set up, unless they're restricted or if you can make them private. But what's the next step after the event to thank them, to make sure they're not just that one-off donor? How are you trying, what steps are you taking to try to engage them, especially if you're reaching people maybe not right in your market or your area? I'm just curious on that.
We use RegFox for pre-registration. So we capture just a name, a cell, and an email. And then on that registration, if somebody couldn't attend, we gave them the option to give to the, to our group. And then we also gave them an option to click if they would like more information on ways of engagement or involvement with us. The Facebook thing was a little bit trickier, although most people that we connected to through that invite piece of a Facebook event thing, we were able to capture them and follow up with them on the Facebook like messaging system or whatever. But I didn't handle that, so I gave that to a younger person who knows all about that stuff. And but a little bit of engagement, I think at minimum we want to get a cell phone and an email. I felt like the more we asked for people, the less they might want to engage. Like, what would we be doing with all this info? We're just coming to a driving tour, but that was what we did on our registration, the front end of it. And then we follow up with an email. Thank you for coming, put some videos up of what we did that day and so on. So as a follow-up.
We have a comment in here about having a database or a document of the vendors that people are using. I know that when we were doing Career Success Institute, which then became Focus on Philanthropy, which then became a canceled event, we were talking about having vendors that people use actually participate as sponsors at the event. So I know we've already talked about GiveSmart and BidPal and One Cause, and everybody's like, which is awesome because you're putting this in the comments, which is really good. So we can go back and refer to those as some really good vendors. we're having to look at things from a whole new way, and we're having to pick up new vendors, technology vendors and so forth, things that maybe we've never had to deal with before. Would anybody like to share, give a shout out to somebody that's really doing a great job for them, and we can throw some more business their way if necessary?
Well, I want to jump right in. I don't know if Jackie, if there's a way that we can capture all that other than just through this recording, because, I've never heard of Reg Fox. Is that what you said it was called, Amy? Reg Fox?
Mm-hmm.
That to be able to have like that database, twofold. Yeah, we can follow up them for donors of AFP events, but also to give recommendations for other nonprofits to use. Because I wrote down a couple, but it'd be great if there was a resource, and this would be, I think, as a member of AFP, if this was like a protected resource, it'd be a great tool as a member to have access to that. But
I forgot to.
I just sent out a survey for our members. I can add a question and ask members to tell us what they use. What do you think about that?
yeah, that might be good, just to say some, but I don't know how we would narrow it down if we want to say, because I don't know that we want to just say virtual, because I think it's great to build up a database of all vendors, but for this perspective, we're obviously talking about specific to events and a lot of virtual stuff. But
How would you like that worded? Like, what online tools have you used for event planning or event management?
I would, maybe something that just says vendors.
Vendors, yeah.
Yeah, that you have used for
What
events.
vendors?
Because we're
Okay.
talking about
And
vendors that are doing the IT portion. We're talking about vendors that actually are delivering meals.
Mhm.
We're talking about vendors that we're using for online auctions. I mean, there's just so many different resources that have popped up. And I think that there are a lot of companies that maybe never even entered into the nonprofit field that are getting phone calls and going, what? This is a thing?
Mhm.
So, and the ones that are coming up that people are sending right now in chat, like, I've never even heard of these groups.
Right. Dang, you know what? Let's create a different survey. Because this one, I'm limited to 10 questions and I've already used them up. So how about this? How about we do an ad hoc board committee to identify what you would like to include in the survey? Because I think you want like a satisfaction, what category would they fit in? Would they do auctions, stuff like that? And then satisfaction level with them. So I think it's more than just a one question thing, and we can just do a really intense survey. What do you think about that?
That'll
Yeah, I
work.
think that's great.
Yeah, we'll just take it to
Okay.
the board. We'll sidebar that.
Okay.
We'll work on it as a
Okay.
board.
There you go.
We'll add it to the list of things to do for the board. No problem.
Okay, yeah, I think that'll be a lot better because it'll allow people to get more input, and so people will be able to get a better feel for what the tools do. Sounds good.
That will be super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yes, but I
aim to
did-
please.
I did send out a member survey about 5 minutes ago, so if you guys want to complete it before next Friday, really appreciate it. So check your inboxes after this meeting.
Trying not to drown you in surveys, but it does help us with our mission here to support you guys.
One other option too for online types of events and virtual events is to use Zoom, but not just like this kind of Zoom, but as it's called Zoom webinar features. And so then you can pull people out into smaller groups if you want. The other nice thing that we're going to actually be doing for our event is pre-recording a lot of things. And then you can be on this Zoom webinar system, and then just part of your slide presentation are those pre-recorded sections. So it still looks like a live event because you have a live MC, and it can be very seamless as far as going back and forth from live to those pre-recorded options. So if you can't afford necessarily to have a full-on marketing manager, doing your event for you, that is a lower cost option.
I think, I don't know how many, I haven't participated in it, but my husband did. He actually attended a virtual meeting conference, and they did everything in rooms through Zoom. So I'm wondering, Brenda, if that might even work for you, where your benefactor and your scholarship winners could actually go into like a virtual room to talk and bond and connect or whatever virtually. And I don't know how many rooms are available or any of that, but it might be a way to at least provide some kind of face-to-face virtual contact.
That's a great idea. I just completed a International Rotary event, and they pulled people to rooms, and it was pretty seamless. I guess I would just say the one thing that lacked there was the moderator in the rooms needs to be well trained. I don't know that you'd want to just put a donor and student in a room and let them. I think you're going to have a moderator there to lead that conversation and at least
I agree with that.
Control it a little bit. That's a great idea.
Thanks, Sydney. Anybody else? Still have like another 30 minutes, but I don't want to take anybody's time up if nobody has any other questions or best practices they want to share. Anybody? Any challenges anyone's facing right now you need some help with? This is a good group to talk to. Everything's perfect out there in the fundraising world. That's awesome. I picked a great time to start my own business. Good?
That was funny, Dawn.
I'm nothing if humorous. All right. Well, if there's not any other topics anybody wants to talk about, best practices you want to share, I don't want to keep people here in an awkward pause, so we can sign off.
I will share.
Oh, there's one of my grade 28 class members. I love
The grade 28.
grade 28.
So at the food bank, we typically have a strolling dinner party taste of the Pro Football Hall of Fame event in September. And we made the choice to, of course, not have that event in person. But we also are not doing really a virtual event. We're just going to have a day of giving. But what we did with our sponsors is we chose to, everyone who sponsored the event in 2019 is being recognized in 2020, whether they renewed their sponsorship or not. And all of our restaurant vendors are being recognized again on the Day of Giving website. So trying to show some love to our past supporters. And then for sponsors this year, even though we weren't having the event and we were going to recognize them, we still went to all of our sponsors and asked them to renew their gift to support either a programmatic effort of the food bank, another virtual event, or some match campaigns that we have scheduled for the holiday season, just to try to stay in their budget so that next year, hopefully when we're all back to blue skies and we can be hosting the event again, we're still in their budget. And that we haven't fallen off on what they've contributed to so that we can keep that cycle going. So I think even if you are canceling events, I would still go to your sponsors and make requests for gifts of the same amount they've sponsored in the past, just to keep, you're in their budget cycle and to keep those funds coming in, even if it's not to support the event, but to support a programmatic effort or something else at the organization.
That's good advice. I think this was a really good time for stewardship of donors because we had a little bit more time to do that in the spring. So I think that's great to continue that process going forward with our donors and sponsors. Thank you. Has anybody found a fabulous way to recognize their sponsors? Outside of the box thinking? Beyond the normal in a world of virtual?
We're doing a lot of shout outs this year. Not that we haven't done that before, but our sponsorship response has been for this November event at Tangier is like surprisingly active right now. I'm grateful, but one of the things we added to our visionary sponsors, so the ones that give at the top of that program, is a lunch date with our director and board chair. And people think that that's kind of fun. So I thought, you know what, if someone's willing to, you know, sponsor at a certain level, we need our director and our chair to sit down with that person.
You know what? I did that with Stark Parks. I had the highest level donor got to go on a park tour with the park director. Who better to?
Awesome. I love that.
They they loved that. They were like, "Oh my God, seriously?" It was like a behind the scenes look at all the parks and what was going on, and people loved that.
Yeah, a little more interactive. Not that, I mean, COVID's of course crimping our style. We are a relationship-centric organization, as most everyone is, but like giving them shout outs. So whatever we do in person, we're also going to pivot to do a virtual or an online like shout out as well, like from our staff or our volunteers. So we're trying to figure out all those creative ways. But
yeah, it's like I do with my friends now. Like, I'm sending you a virtual hug. I mean, it's kind of like, here's our virtual thanks. That's what we have to do.
Exactly.
So I'm reading my messages over here. Thanks, Angela. Making me laugh. Okay. Anybody else have any great ideas? Best practices. Here we go. Everybody's quiet. Okay, well, go out and enjoy the beautiful day. Go out and raise some money, people.
Thank you so much for pulling this together. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yes,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.